Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Shot of Nostalgia. Happy Fridays. Welcome to the 14th episode where we continue diving back into the historical year of 1996 in WCW. I'm good old Mike Belcaster, and you know who this gentleman is. Ace, introduce yourself for the people.
What's going on, guys? Gray blazer on today. I got my anti-Taskmaster shirt on. The ace of the tavern, Stephen ACEFIELD, ready to start our weekend. We got a big Death Before Dishonor event tomorrow. Flashback Friday we have here on the tavern. We got Before Our Time following us. What a great time to be alive. Shot Nostalgia, man. I'm so happy to be here and get started here.
So damn pumped, man. As always, another great fucking week of WCW. Couldn't be happier. And I mean, come on, we're creeping in, brother, to the good shit, to the third man, brother.
Holy shit, man. I can't believe we're here. When we started this journey 14 weeks ago, this is why we picked 1996. And the episode that's coming up next week, you do not want to miss it. We're going to have Matt from Extra Cooler. He's going to be joining us, discussing everything WCW. Who knows who else will show up, but we will be breaking down Bash at the Beach 1996 in depth. We're going to be talking about all the ramifications, what went on in the newsletter. I can't wait to see the historical relevance to today, but also looking at the newsletter and seeing if they recognize how truly game-changing and revolutionary what they were watching was, because it's hard to see the forest when you're inside the trees. When you're above it, we're able to look back at WCW 1996 with hindsight and be able to apply what actually went down. But similar to the curtain call, people didn't know what a big deal it would be. And I'm curious if everyone knew how big Hogan turning heel was.
Yeah, I'm very, very curious to hear how the Meltzer report comes out. It's going to be pretty interesting, man. This is just huge. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be underlooked at first until it starts gaining more and more traction. But as we know, this is one of the biggest moments in pro wrestling history, man.
And we hear that about a lot of things, but this is truly the moment that WCW really changed the face of professional wrestling, and reality-based programming became the norm, and it became an arms race about not only a ratings war, but it was about who can create the best content for wrestling fans. And it truly was a golden age to be a wrestling fan. If you grew up in the late 90s, you know what I'm talking about. Just an absolute blast to be alive. And this is the sweet spot. I mean, us being the age we are,
yeah.
I mean, wrestling was everywhere. As pop culture, it was the norm, and it wasn't such a niche type of fandom. It was everywhere you went. Everyone was watching professional wrestling.
Yeah, no, listen, I used to go to WCW Nitro with my dad's friends from work. Like, it was shit like that. Like we'd meet them up at the Billy Goat right by the United Center, because they used to run the United Center, much like AW does. And they'd be all fucked up, ready to roll. Like, let's go see some WCW Nitro. And it's like, hell yeah, man. Like everybody was all about it. And yeah, man, I'm excited to relive it and bring it back a little bit. It's gonna be a fucking great time. I'm so stoked for this, man.
And this will be the first time we have a guest here on the show. It's been the two of us through this whole journey, but I can't wait to have Matt from Extra Cooler, friend of the Pod Foundation, Extra Cooler Show. Check them out. They dropped an episode yesterday, continuing their journey through 1997 SummerSlam. So that was a great episode. So check them out. Matt is such a good guy. Can't wait to have him on here and hear his perspective, because we all look at wrestling through a different lens, and that's what makes it such a fun ride. And the tavern's such a unique place to be to discuss pro wrestling, because we all have our opinions, and we disagree, we agree, but at the end of the day, it's all fun and games.
Yeah, we're all family, man. We get through our bullshit even if we have different opinions and stuff. It's what being good friends and good camaraderie is all about, man.
Hell yeah, man. And you know what? I think it's time to get into happy hour. We got to wet our whistle. We got to get some drinks in and talk about the newsletter from June of 1996.
Love that song, man.
So good. And Dusty Rhodes is struggling more and more every single week, but we have the newsletter to break down. And like we always do, we go through the Wrestling Observer archives and comb through the relevant newsletter episode, or whatever you want to call it, or edition from that date, in tune with what's going on with Nitro. So we went through the June 24th newsletter, which is right on the day that Nitro aired. And the first thing here, and we're talking about Great American Bash, which is looked back upon as a very solid event, more so in the newsletter than we did today. We talked about the event being a very quality, as far as wrestling goes, it was a breath of fresh air as pay-per-views go. It was the best one we've seen so far. I think our tolerance for pro wrestling and I guess our threshold of what's a good event has been raised so high in the past couple of years with AEW, not to just pat them on the back, but we're almost spoiled as wrestling fans today.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you can go back, let's say like 7-8 years. WWE, you could say the same. There was some quality wrestling going on a little under a decade ago there. But yeah, I think we're just spoiled in general as wrestling entrepreneurs, wrestling, consumers, that we just we see a lot of really, really great stuff, especially like your time limit draws with Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson, stuff like that. It just we're littered in the best shit ever. So a lot of it stems back to this era though. So this pay-per-view was fantastic. I loved, I'm excited to hear the love of Great American Bash. I thought it was a really solid show.
Yeah, Dave Meltzer gushes over this, and the wording kind of confused me because I definitely didn't walk away with this opinion. Again, I thought it was a good show, and we talked about the matches in depth. If you guys want to go back to last week, episode 13, where we talked about Great American Bash. But the WCW Great American Bash show on June 16th was one of those exceptions to WCW's poor work rate. It's hard to believe that a WCW show can be compared with shows on the level of the J Cup in Japan, but this show, for angles, was the single best pay-per-view show ever. For wrestling, it was very good as well. So he's recognizing the significance of KEVIN Nash and Scott Hall coming in, no doubt about it. The outsider gimmick is already starting to catch fire. But as far as wrestling goes, I didn't walk away being like, this is the best wrestling event ever. I still hold WrestleMania 17 in that account. You can go back to All Out with Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole debuting. I walked away. This was a solid show, but I don't think it was one of the best shows ever.
It's not in my top 5. I'll say that it's not my top. It might not even be in my top 10, but it's a solid ass show. I thought it was great. Maybe back then it was the top of the mountain. I mean, I just don't recall enough to remember it like being praised. So, but I mean, for what it was great. We did get some good storytelling. We got some great matches. I wouldn't say it was the best pay-per-view on WC. I mean, we've seen some great WCW matches through other pay-per-views, other events, other nitros. So I think it's up there. I wouldn't give it all the glory though.
And it's hard to watch these events through the lens of being in 1996 and and that's why it's cool to do what we're doing here. But at the end of the day, when you do a live reaction and watch something in real time, you can take in every sort of factor and every outlier effect, such as other wrestling and what the bar has been raised to. And like I referenced before with AEW and WWE and in some capacity, what we believe is a good wrestling show, that's beyond the scope of what we could have imagined in 1996, 25, 30 years later, to where wrestling was work rate rise, where the undercard was delivering better than a lot of main event caliber matches. And there's a lot to be said about the work rate back here in WCW and even in WWF during the Attitude Era, or even right before. Like right now we're on the cusp of that Attitude Era. Yeah. Work rate was certainly not the focus of these characters, and a lot of the match quality, when you go back and watch, you remember it fondly, but the matches were not as good as you remember. I mean, there's certainly highlights and exceptions there, but for the most part, it wasn't about inside the ring. It was more about the story being told.
Yeah, absolutely. And characters being developed and getting everybody to another level, I think, is very important. I don't think the matches really took off that much until later this year. In 1996, I don't think like we really got some spectacular shit when 97, 98 comes around, but I mean, this is the beginning of it. There obviously you got some great stuff, Rey Mysterio's debut, all that shit, but like the best of the best, not quite there yet.
Do you think that, and this is sort of pulling the thread of wrestling today, do you think that it's almost a bad thing that we get so much good wrestling on our TV on a weekly basis that eventually we're capping out, where we're numb to these great matches and we watch and even going back to the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks in the cage, and think about Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson, as you referenced, and also Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. Every week the bar is raised where it's hard to even appreciate these great matches, because back when they had the Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13, that existed on its own, where it was such a high bar for everyone to reach and no one came close. On a weekly basis, you can get an opening match like last night on Dynamite. We had Brody King versus Darby Allin. That would have been one of the best matches that could have appeared in WCW 1996 quality wise.
Yeah. No, you know, it's weird. I think we are a little numb. I mean, the matches aren't as polarized as they were back then. As you said, like Brett and Austin, that's something that you talk about for the whole year, as opposed to we see Kenny versus Bryan Danielson, then we see Kenny versus Hangman, then we see, you know, the Brody fighting Darby. They all live up. I think they paint their own landscapes, so it's a little harder to judge, especially because like I mean, the Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers was less than a year ago. And I mean, it's not forgotten, but it's not brought up as much as it probably would have been in the 90s. You know, people would be like, that was the best tag match ever, which it was a top tier tag match, probably one of the best I think we've ever seen. But I just don't think people bring it up as much. I don't think it's, they don't hang on to it as much because they're so excited to see what's next. So it's more of it's kind of like how the times change, you know, everything's on an iPad, everything's this, everything's quick at the button. So are these moments now, you know?
Yeah, instant gratification. And I think time ferments memory. So over time, say 25 years past, we're going to look back at the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks, and someone who was my age in 1996, 7, 8 years old, that watched that live may look back fondly and say, you had to see it to believe it. But for right now, we're in this age where it's push, get the best wrestling on the card. And it's hard to appreciate because you have a great match like Brody versus Darby, I'm referencing from the opening match of Dynamite this week. And it's almost like forgotten. There's so much good wrestling, not even just AEW, but you know, we talk about AAA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, even GCW on a bi-weekly
100%.
basis. GCW is just crushing it. And these matches just get lost in the fold where, as you mentioned, the 90s, they may have lived in fame forever, that they've been talking about Tony Deppen versus John Moxley forever. Like, you had to fucking see that match. And I don't know, we just move on. We move so fast.
No, I mean, it's the same thing could be said about the dog collar match between Punk and MJF. I mean, it was beautiful, build up great. How often are people mentioning it like recently? You know, it's just one of those things, like they feel like the matches fall on a back burner 2 weeks after the event. And then it just kind of builds out from there. And you're more excited to see what's happening next. Who's going to be signed next? What's going to happen with blah, 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 and so. Where's this going? So it's a lot more about the road ahead is what the road we traveled on already was.
Yeah, with shot of nostalgia, it's teaching me to slow down as a wrestling fan and appreciate what we're seeing and enjoy these matches and moments as they happen, because it's hard to, just as everything in life, you're always looking forward to what's next and you're always looking past today. Live in the moment and just enjoy what's going on in front of you, the people around you, the things that you're in front, that you're doing on that day, instead of always pushing towards the next day. The same can be said about wrestling fans, but also can say about life.
Yeah, 100%, man.
We're getting deep here on a Friday, but let's move on.
I haven't
here.
even busted out the shots yet. I mean, come on.
I'm an emotional man. Let me just tell you, Mike Belcaster.
I appreciate it. I absorb it. I love it. That's what we're here for, man.
So speaking of announcers, Pedro Morales, who does the Spanish language broadcast on pay-per-view for WCW, was injured after the show. They had set up several gimmick tables for when it was time for Bischoff to take a bump, which is the famous bump now that we see Nash and Hall throw him through the table. So in the case he missed one, he hit another one. When Morales was coming back from the broadcast, he accidentally stepped on one of the gimmick tables, which collapsed, and he fell 4 feet. Sorry to laugh. And landed on his elbow. His elbow wound up all swollen, and his hip, knee, and back were all injured in the ball, although he refused to go to the hospital. So, gimmick tables, we talk about them all the time. We see bumps galore. I mean, we watched the death match on Wednesday with Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho, where there was the barbed wire spot. And as messy as that was, some of those bumps were pretty gnarly to take. Do you remember any of this with the story with Pedro Morales? Like,
no idea.
Has me laughing here.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. Talk about the guy taking a hell of a bump, man. I mean, 4 feet landed on your elbow. That shit don't feel good at all. So, I mean, that's a shit situation. R.I.P. Pedro his elbow. I hope it healed up well.
Yeah. So just wanted to mention that there, because you set up these gimmick things throughout the night, And you also think about stuff that's put under the ring as well, where like all different events where you get that giant ladder. I think back to the Big Show, that Money in the Bank all those years ago with that reinforced ladder that they brought out. So things are placed in certain places and it has to go right, so this gimmick table was not intended for Pedro Morales to go through, but go through what he did.
Yeah.
All right. So we also talk about the ratings and everything that goes on with the NBA playoffs and how the NBA demolishes AEW. So they talk about Great American Bash taking a hit from the NBA. The Pancrase Brawl at the Budokan pay-per-view, which is a New Japan Pro Wrestling show, likely took more of a hit. So WCW had at least a lot of hype and tons of television exposure going for it, plus a hardcore base of fans. Pancrase's audience is a group of people who saw the first show, probably mainly UFC fans looking at something new. So I apologize. Pancrase is actually an Ultimate Fighting thing. And Ultimate Fighting was in its infancy in these early years, where we look at a lot of the ads that appear on ESPN with these UFC shows, and it's so socially acceptable. But there was a time where UFC, even in New York, they weren't allowed to run here because of the athletic commission, because of how brutal it was. And you would never see advertisers get behind this. It was interesting to hear them talk about Ultimate Fighting in this capacity because it was so new, so fresh, and how far they've come. This is the first time I've saw any sort of UFC mention here in the newsletter.
Yeah, no, I remember strictly my mom forbidding UFC events, even though we would watch wrestling. It was, you can't watch that shit. It's too barbaric. Those guys really beat the piss out of each other. I'm pretty sure, I think it was like 95. Somebody died during a UFC match. So like, I mean, there was well reasoning behind it while they were banning it so much and not, sponsoring it. It wasn't so acceptable because it was absolutely barbaric. I feel like they made a little bit more rule set, kind of gave it that worker rub to where they kind of, planned it out a little bit more, if you will. I don't want to use the F word, but I think they kind of elongate the stories a little bit more in UFC now, as opposed to back then. Back then, it was just guys beating the shit out of each other for fun. So yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah, I mean, both UFC and WWE and pro wrestling took from each other, and a lot of the, we have stars that go both ways. It's a two-way street at this point, and some of the wrestlers are less successful than the UFC guys going to wrestling are as successful. You think of, Lesnar's done both, and he started as a wrestler but became a very successful UFC fighter. Ronda started UFC fighter, pretty successful wrestler, and Punk famously tried to go over to that side and did not go as well. But I think the showmanship of pro wrestling really took the, I guess, edge off of UFC, where it became a spectacle. And although it was authentically real as far as people getting hurt in the ring and like the blood sport of it, I think wrestling normalized that when it became more of a show, when you have characters like Conor McGregor going out there and acting like he's a professional wrestler, it makes it feel, I guess, more normalized. And it's the growth we've seen from 96 to now. I mean, wrestling's become very normalized, but even then, UFC was looked at as like, no sponsors touching this.
Yeah, like even to the point where Ken Shamrock had a hard time working in WWF. I remember that. So the cross play wasn't there yet. I believe a lot of reality TV, like the Ultimate Fighter show and all that shit, kind of helped out with it, kind of getting to that point. Chuck Liddell's success, stuff like that. So I'm not a big UFC guy, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I did catch it when it was on Spike TV, man. The old days when Spike TV was running around with, right before TNA Impact would be rolling, you'd watch like the Ultimate Fighter or something and be like, yeah, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think a big piece of the casual fan that used to tune into wrestling is now tuning into UFC, and that's why the casual fan is pretty much gone from AEW, WWE, because the casual fan now Saturday night goes to the friend's house and watches a fight, where they used to go and watch SummerSlam. Now they're watching UFC with their friends. And, I think the casual fan can come back. I think we're on the precipice of having that boom period. You need something substantial like you have with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash coming into the company. I don't know who would have that meaning. It's hard to say, because if you knew it would happen, they would pull the trigger on it. But it has to be the right time, right place. And it has to be able to transcend pop culture. And, we're living in a time in 1996, as we're sitting here, Shot Nostalgia, where they were able to really transcend what wrestling was. And
Yeah.
Hogan in 1985 did it at WrestleMania and became the Rockin' Wrestling Connection and all that stuff at MTV. This was on par with that because it entered everybody's psyche as the norm. It's like, oh shit, Hogan's doing this as a bad guy.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah. No, listen, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash really helped that truck start moving more. It was a big deal. So it was good shit, man.
So just to give you some history on the Pancrase stuff, I looked it up. It's a hybrid wrestling. It's a mixed martial arts promotion founded in 1993. Interestingly enough, by Minoru Suzuki. And I don't think this is the Funaki we know and love, but there's another Funaki involved in here. They still exist. Funaki. They still exist in Japan. So if you're interested in some real hybrid wrestling that has a UFC tinge to it, Pancrase is your thing. Founded in 1993
by Murder Pawpaw.
Yeah, Minoru Suzuki had to do with this. 29 years old. Go and check it out, but do it after watching all your tavern stuff. We don't need you guys inundated with more stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Next here, we're talking about Japanese tours and some wrestling going on over there with the WCW roster. So the next tour to Japan is June 23rd to July 17th. With the roster from WCW, the Road Warriors, Brad Armstrong, are staying for the entire tour. The Giant, Ric Flair, Randy Savage, and Lex Luger are going to be there for the final 2 shows in July. We talk about Forbidden Door and Dax Harwood's going to Japan to work New Japan Pro Wrestling, I think this week. Or if it's already taped, I'm not sure. He did it already. But this is huge. You have the Giant, who's the world champion. Ric Flair, who is a multiple over and over again, a world champion, the former world champion prior to the Giant. Randy Savage, Lex Luger. These are not mid-card guys that are being tossed over there. The relationship between WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling is so strong here, and the trust is magnificent to watch.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I think it really led a path for stuff to happen like this now. You know, as long ago as it was, I really think it did. I think it made the importance of having your guys go to a New Japan or any company, AAA, all that stuff. So, yeah, Bischoff and Turner were really onto something back in the day, man. And it's. I mean, you're talking big names. This is no pussyfoot. This isn't Disco Inferno going over to New Japan for a week,
right?
I mean, you got Lex Luger, Randy Savage, the Giant. It's crazy.
Yes, so much so the relationship is very strong that there was serious talk about doing Starrcade in December of 1996 in Tokyo.
Wow.
It was not in Tokyo, and I think things went in a different direction with where the storyline started to go, with how much the New World Order took off. But it just shows. I mean, AEW, there was, I guess, chatter about doing a Forbidden Door in Tokyo. But could you imagine them doing one of the big 4, you know, Double or Nothing, Full Gear, or All Out in Tokyo? That'd be insane to me.
Yeah, I think it could see it happening more now. But back then, imagine what a Starrcade would look like at the Tokyo Dome or just in Japan in general. It would have been fucking nuts.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, the relationship pops up over and over again with New Japan Pro Wrestling and WCW in here. It just shows that the inroads that were made with WCW, it's like Tony Khan popped back in and said, it's happened before. There are some existing voices that have still remained in New Japan Pro Wrestling that understood that they can work collaboratively with a North American company that is willing to be authentic and honest in their approach with how you book their talent. And I think it's great. And I think it's been done before, and people look at the Forbidden Door thing as it can't work. Eventually egos get in the way. And I think we're watching 1996. It's proof that it can work, and it did work.
Yeah, 100%, man.
In the head-to-head hour with WWF, WCW had a largest margin of victory ever. So the big thing with this is that we're starting to see, and this is not the start of the 83 weeks, but it will approach soon. We start to see WCW take a spike above, and they're going back and forth here. They're head-to-head. There's a lot of big stars here in WCW, but they start to really pull away when things start to take off with Hogan and Nash and Hall and NWO and the reality-based program that eventually WWF took and did better than them with the Stone Cold stuff and the Attitude Era. But this is, I mean, WCW is starting to take off, and it's funny to watch from where they were in January with the program being very goofy and very comic, like 1996, 1995 WWF. and they start to move completely away,
Yeah.
almost by accident. They almost discovered it by accident.
No, it's true. And I mean, listen, the ratings didn't lie. Shit was changing very rapidly, and fans were starting to kind of move over to one side for a while. And like you said, it's not the 83 weeks yet, but I mean, we are right on the cups of that, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think a big thing with WCW is that they followed the tea leaves and they understand that, you know, wrestling was evolving. And even though the Brian Pillman stuff didn't go in their direction, they experimented with Pillman, and they understood that reality-based programming got people to tune in and say, this part of wrestling is fixed and this is scripted, but there's parts of it that's not. And it starts to blur the line where, you know, we're going to talk about it in a few weeks, that situation with Rey Mysterio being lawn darted into the production truck. You actually had real life police, EMTs showing up to the scene because people were calling the cops saying that there was a gang beatdown in the parking lot where the WCW event was. It starts to blur the line. And I think that's where wrestling is at its best, when it's hugging that line of reality and also fiction.
100%. Even at the don't want to jump ahead, but even at the end of our second episode tonight, I mean, a bunch of state troopers are in the ring. Their whole hands are on the gun. It's not like they're just out there with, you know, security vests on. These guys are full blown state troopers, you know, brown button ups, big hats, but they're not sitting there going, "Oh, back up, back up." They're holding their pistols, man, and you feel it more. Like, just those little details add to the realism of it that make you go, "Huh, maybe this shit's a little fucked up."
Oh yeah, and I think that's a big piece of what they pulled from mixed martial arts. And we talk about pancrase and UFC emerging. I think that sort of line where people want to suspend belief, and because wrestling, you know, it started when people want to escape. They want an escape from reality, and they want to believe what they're watching is real. And, you know, wink, wink, we all know what's going on in front of us, but you want to immerse yourself. The best stories are told where you are invested in the characters. And if you can, for a second, believe that what's happening in front of you is, you don't know what's going on and you're a little bit disoriented as far as what's reality and what's not, that's when it's at its best. And I think that's where it thrives.
Yeah, 100%, man.
So we have some house shows coming up for WCW, and some big news. And I've never heard anything about this, and I never heard about Bruno Sammartino having any relationship with WCW, but we know that he was spurned by WWF and exiled, blackballed until very recently, where Triple H mended the fences with Vince and everybody and brought him into the Hall of Fame. So Bruno Sammartino will referee the 4 Northeast states for $2,000 per pop during the Flair Savage match. Pedro Morales will also appear at all the shows, being in Conan's corner for the matches against Kevin Sullivan. So bringing in the big guns, Bruno Sammartino being in WCW, that's a weird mix for me. He's a WWF lifer to me.
Yeah, I remember some ramblings about it happening. I don't remember it to the fullest, to where I'm like, oh yeah, that for sure was a thing. But it is crazy. Like, you're talking Mr. WWF, you know, the old school WWF doing shit, doing dates. I mean, $2,000 a pop in 1996. That's
big boy
good
money.
Yeah, that's pretty good payday. So Turner, baby, he's got that Turner money.
Had that lope, as Matt Cardona would say, and had the lope for Bruno Sammartino. They had to, because you want to get that guy in there. It's a big deal.
It adds legitimacy, you know. It just adds to your history. Of course.
So the tentative plan for the August pay-per-view from Sturgis, South Dakota, is to have the Giant versus Hogan for the title, and Flair versus Savage, with the women at stake. So right now, Hogan's penciled in. We see vignettes. We hear murmurs that even on these last Nitros, the announcers mention Hogan wants to get back and defend the honor of WCW. And we don't know what's, you know, we've heard Bischoff talk about it. We've heard Hogan talk about it. We've seen the shoot interviews. As much as they probably knew eventually, when they did know, I think there was big pieces of time that they didn't know Hogan would be a heel, because I don't think they actually, even for a split second, wanted to pull the trigger on it. I think it just happened because of the momentum, and selfishly, Hogan is who he is. And he recognized the momentum train, the gravy train, if you will, was moving in a direction. He hopped on board, and it was the best thing to ever happen to WCW and his career, truly.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm a big fan of was it? Is it Hog Wild? I believe is the pay-per-view.
Yep, that's
Yes.
the
So
August
Hog
pay-per-view coming
Wild
up.
was my shit. I love the whole bikers all the way out into the fields, revving up the engines when they come up. But I mean, even up until this episode, they kind of are painting Savage to be this crazed lunatic. And it seems like, oh, he might be the third man. Like they kind of are leaving little seeds to it. So I think Hogan was off the fence, man. And I think it could have been Randy Savage or maybe even a Sting at this point. It's crazy to go back and think about it.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone else would have had the ramifications that Hogan was. And we talked about this in depth every time it comes up. But Luger was rumored, Sting was rumored, Hakushi was rumored, Jeff Jarrett was rumored. Nobody, and I mean nobody, would have the impact that Hulk Hogan eventually had because of his longevity in wrestling at that point. He was the biggest star, and he was the guy who needed the biggest facelift. He was so stale. And even when he was gone for a bit, he probably would have got a good pop and had a nice little run when he came back as a face. But inevitably, people were sick of the old guard, the old Hulk Hogan, and he needed a complete rebranding, and they got a huge one.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So Titan made several legal threats regarding the Hall Nash stuff, which is why they had to admit on television they didn't work for the WWF. Hall had contacted Henry Holmes, which is Hogan's attorney, to try and say the most of the mannerisms he uses Ramon, he first used his Diamond Stud, and that it was he, not WWF, who came up with the name Razor Ramon, and also get the money still owed to him. So we know WWF, that letter we read last week with the beautiful music in the background, they were withholding money from his last paydays, threatening legal action. But I think, we talked about this in the past, that there's certain mannerisms that's just the person themselves. And we see that happening with Bryan Danielson. Like, yes, he can't use the yes chant. He can't call himself Daniel Bryan. He can't say it's the yes movement. You can't stop the fans from saying, you can't stop the fans from thinking about it.
Yeah.
And Razor's face, Scott Hall's face, is his face. Like, that's the character.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's like, how are they going to take away Adam Cole from Adam Cole? It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And they're like, you got these guys coming over from different companies. I mean, you got Cesaro, who's basically Cesaro, but he's just Claudio Castagnoli now. I mean, it's you can't take away the swing. Like, what what are you guys shooting for? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. And at the end of the day, again, Razor's face is his face. You can't cover his face. You can't copyright someone's appearance. And some of these guys' appearance, especially in this era, they're so toyetic. I mean, we look at this whole era. It's probably the most toyetic era in all of wrestling. We just had San Diego Comic-Con drop all these figures, and it's no coincidence that you have a lot of figures from this era of wrestling.
100%, man. You can't take the checks away from Medium Ming, okay?
100%. And speaking about one of those guys that we talked about, super toyetic, Brian Pillman debuted on Raw doing a 1-minute contract signing, acting as a babyface, but turned heel later, which should air in the coming week. Pillman had been hospitalized all week as his ankle was infected, and he had a high fever. The year, I mean, no one's had a year like Brian Pillman, up and down, flipping around. Brian Pillman's all over the place.
Yeah, and rightfully so, he should be. But I mean, this is just the ankle infection, all that shit. Like it's got to be such a bummer when you're so ready to go. And I think Pillman was so ready to go before that accident, man.
So we move on here with the Savage ban being lifted. We know that Randy Savage has been banned to be in the building, involved in in-ring action. He was only involved on the house show circuit because they wanted to pop a good ticket sale number in all these cities they're doing with Savage. And I think it kind of worked for a bit. But the reason it was lifted was because of them losing to the Monday night to Raw, and nothing to do with long-term planning. So they had won the week after. They decided to bring him back when they lost the week before, when they were going back and forth. So Savage being back in the ring, it's good for storytelling. And like, he's one of the faces of the company. Just put him in the ring. Yeah.
And my God, I mean, you got one of the most toyetic dudes out there. How can you not love him? And merch sales, everything. He's their guy.
Yeah, and I'd be amiss if I didn't find a way to sneak it in here. But that Monday Nitro set that they released, or they're debuting, and they show the great video of it. Give me some talk about that. You are the Fig Night guy here. Tell me about how you're feeling about their release with that whole set.
Brother, if I knew it was coming out and I had a place to just throw my money at, I don't care how much it costs. It could be $500. Okay, give me Give me medium Meng and big Meng with it in their street clothes with some baseball bats. I'm all for it. But it's the sad thing is they did this last year with a Monday Night Raw. You know, it was the Attitude Era stage, and it looked beautiful. Had smoke coming out on both sides, but they're like, we'll probably won't make it. We won't engage the fan interest. So it breaks my heart knowing that I'm not going to have that beautiful piece in my collection because I'm a kid. Still, you know, those are things I've longed for since I was a little bitty dude collecting, you know, my WCW Toy Biz figures. But what a beauty it is. I mean, it looks gorgeous. It had smoke. They put Goldberg up there. It had LED lights on the trusses. Yeah, it was just gorgeous. A little big actually for the WCW stage too. If you look at it compared to what we're watching here, it was about, you know, a couple WCW signs longer than the regular Nitro stage. So I mean, they could minimize it and sell it, make some money off of it because we need more WCW love on the WWE side of things, man, because they just don't give it out enough.
Yeah, I mean, they own the intellectual property, and I know they have all the stuff on Peacock and go back and watch the events as we're doing right now. But I think part of the insecurity of Vince McMahon, he doesn't want to highlight a company that created their own content outside of his universe.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're missing out on the opportunity to engage wrestling fans that maybe aren't in love with the product today, but they'd come back to enjoy something from the past. And that's how you bridge the gap.
Absolutely. I mean, they didn't make their first WCW belt, at least I think it was like 5 years ago. Ron Simmons was the first one to come with an actual WCW branded heavyweight title. I mean, respectably so, right? But like, Come on, give us some love. I think the Outsiders just came out in the Legends line. They finally got WCW tag titles. Little pieces are sneaking their way through the cracks, man. But like, I would love a Nitro playset. Come on.
If you guys like the figure talk, please check out Fig Night on Tuesday nights. We have the crew doing that. Nick Storm, OG Fig Kid, Mike Belcaster, guests galore. They got Jeremy Padawer, they got Steve Ozer, Chris Metzger's been on. You don't know who's going to stop by in the comment section. So a lot of stuff being broken down. And also follow Mike on Instagram with all the great photos he does. And I mean, look at right now on Twitch, right? Orange Cassidy has your picture as his profile picture. Is something you said about that?
Something I wouldn't have even thought of in my entire lifetime, that wrestlers would be not only sharing my shit, but using my photos for their own goods. Fucking much appreciated about it.
It's fantastic. And the work you guys do on Fig Night, it's bar none. You guys are to me, the bar as far as where figure shows should be, in an eclectic mix of good news, a good time, and good conversation, and amazing guests. So you guys keep up the great work. I certainly enjoy watching every week. So
I appreciate that.
So we move here on in the newsletter. Jeff Jarrett's Titan contract expires on October 7th, and he'll start immediately after that in WCW. So there was rumors that he would be the third man, but the fact that his contract expires in October pretty much rules him out, because they're going to pull the trigger on this third man throughout the summer. They didn't say they were doing it at Bash of the Beach, but they're hyping up this 6-man tag match. Like, you know, it's happening.
Yeah. And listen, I cannot stress this enough. Jeff Jarrett is not the guy. It would have been the biggest flop, I think, ever. I don't think anybody wanted to see Double J's, you know, coming out doing his strut, like, yeah, baby. Oh fuck, I'm so good.
I still remember a Christmas. It had to be 1998. I got the Bendham figure with his old Aztec gear, and I was so bummed. And you know what? I was appreciative of the gift from Santa Claus. I was very happy, but the fact he came in the stocking, like, he was, man, that Bendham figure. I'm so glad the Major Pod released the other versions of him, that Don't Piss Me Off one, and then also even the one with the original debut gear, the one that he had in the Bendham WF line. Oh, man, it's the worst gear he's ever had.
It absolutely was, man. Not a fan. Jeff Jarrett, man. I'll give him props for his TNA run. I give him props for his later WCW shit, but like up until this point, you're talking 96. Guy couldn't wipe fucking, you know, Mongo's ass.
Well, I mean, this is sort of the nepotism that exists in wrestling. I mean, Jerry Jarrett, very, very, very involved in wrestling booking and well connected. I'm not saying that's the only reason Jeff Jarrett got the shots he got, but it didn't hurt. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
But you know, Jeff Jarrett's still relevant in the news today, and he's wrestling Ric Flair, teaming with Jay Lethal, who's also teaming with Andrade. So we're not going to get into that mess. But, you know, Jeff Jarrett, the announcement of Jeff Jarrett never fails to disappoint. So let's just leave it at that.
It's very right up a standard Jim Crockett booking. So I'll leave it at that.
So Kevin Kelly, this is the first time he's the voice of New Japan Pro Wrestling for the English speaking audience. He got hired as an announcer here in WWF, and they said he'll probably start as an interview guy, but it's being groomed to take over Superstars in 1 year. So when McMahon steps down, his background is formerly with Eddie Mansfield Indies in Florida. So I had to mention this. Kevin Kelly has a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
He's been in the business for quite some time. He's killing it in New Japan Pro Wrestling. We saw some love for him on national television with the AEW Forbidden Door stuff. So I love to see Kevin Kelly. And you see him, him and Michael Cole, they've been in this whole run for such a long time. You go back and watch old school WWF stuff, and Kevin Kelly's in the back holding the microphone in front of the Rock. Like, he's been there forever.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's cool to kind of hear his origin story too. This is fucking nuts.
You never know what you're going to get on Shot Nostalgia. I'm here with the last piece of the news, and this is not really WCW related, but I had to mention it because it also paints the picture of what's going on in wrestling. So at the September 9th Chicago show, there's a Vader Warrior story that I've never heard, and I'm always interested in, especially Vader, especially Ultimate Warrior. So this is back in WWF. So they had done 20-second squashes all weekend, somewhat because Vader had a bad hip and because Warrior's shoulders messed up. I guess because the crowd was so big, or because Hellwig was unappreciative, because all the pins are getting so much press in Japan or whatever, Vader took his clotheslines and then walked out. As he got to the back, officials basically told him if he didn't walk back in, he might as well walk all the way back to Colorado and not come back. He got back in the ring and did the match, but ended up walking out again for the count out rather than the pin. Right now, there are no plans to push him until the fall, and they want him to drop weight first. But they did allow him to do a double count out on 9/14 in Denver, since it's his hometown. And lots of his football players he coached in Colorado last season were in attendance, but he did do jobs at other shows. We know Vader did not get over in 1996 WWF. He was that monster in WCW. When we go back to the early 90s where he was that big bad. We want to talk about big bad you compare him to. Brody King is trying to catch some lightning in the bottle and being that. Vader is the archetype for this monster heel you want to make your baby face. And those matches with Sting back in the day, I think that was 1991 with him and Sting. What do you think about this story? I've never heard it before. I know Vader gets a bad rap because he's a little bit overweight, a little bit unmotivated. The Shawn Michaels story, 1995, like where he elbow drops him and he says, you're supposed to move, whatever. He's supposed to move from the elbow drop, and Vader's not cooperating. His WWF run was a mess.
I think he had a lot of tough guy mentality, very much so, especially because he worked in Japan. And like you said, he was this monster presence. I worked an indie show with him, and right before the show, I didn't talk to him all day. I finally ran up to him like right before we were about to do bell time, and I just said, "Sir, fucking honor to meet you. You always scared the shit out of me when I was a kid." I was like, you did your job. I was like, thank you for all the shit. He was like, oh, thank you. So he comes out for his match, and he's walking. He's doing the whoo as he's walking around the ring. Walks right up to me. I'm at the timekeeper's table, and he cracks me so hard in the chest that I took me like 10 minutes to catch my breath back. I was like, holy shit. And he was like, kid. Like that was my only interaction with him. But my goodness, man. He was a giant, and I think he should have always been treated like this massive monster that he was. Besides the weight issues, that's what was part of his gimmick, man. It was like he was big Van Vader, man. That's what he was supposed to fucking be. Why take away from that? Why make him lose a couple pounds? I thought it was great.
Are the rumors true that his gloves smell like absolute shit? Because that's
I heard
all this.
I heard lots of rumors about his gloves, his gear. But yeah, no, it's never got that close to smell the gloves. There was no after whiff after the chest slap.
It always reminded me of Mark Schlereth. He used to play for the Denver Broncos. They used to call him Stink because he used to piss his pants while playing football, so he smelled like shit. People wouldn't want to touch him. So it always reminded me of that.
Beautiful offense, man.
So anyway, Vader's gear smells. He was a legend WCW. That's all you need to know. And that's the newsletter. We're going to move into Get Your Fix and talk about June 17th and June 24th of Monday Nitro. All right, we are here to get our fix. First episode up here is WCW Monday Nitro live from Richmond, Virginia. Richmond Coliseum, where legends are made, as you said before we went on air. Monday Nitro. Our current champs right now, the Giant is still holding down that World Heavyweight Championship, who we won back on April 29th. The U.S. champion is our good buddy Conan, won all the way back on January 29th. The WCW World Tag Team Champions for now are Sting and Lex Luger. I know, spoiler alert, you guys saw the graphic. WCW World Television Champion is Lex Luger, and our Cruiserweight Champion is the man of 1,000 holds, the Iceman himself, Dean Malenko, who won the title back on May 18th, 1996. Our host opened the show, Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko, and they're showing still shots, easy for me to say, pal, of Great American Bash. I used to love these still shots they used to do to like build importance. They didn't want to show you any highlights because they wanted you to order the replay.
Yeah.
WWF used to do it best, man. I remember WrestleMania 15 sticks out in my head, the Raw after.
Yeah, dude, I used to order the paper. If I missed the pay-per-view, I would order them based on the stills. Like if the stills were good, I was like, fuck yeah, I got to watch that. Like it would be like on a Tuesday night. And it'd be like, oh, the pay-per-view is going to be live again tomorrow night. Make sure you order it. And it was like instant buy because it was like, fuck yeah, man. I want to see, Bischoff get powerbombed off the stage. Like, let's do this.
We take for granted how easily accessible it is today, where if you watch a pay-per-view that aired on Peacock or even BR Live, you have access to it. Every event that we order from GCW, it just exists in this cloud somewhere where you have access on your account. You can watch anytime. It's a beautiful thing. But back then, there was some importance to ordering the pay-per-view, capturing it on your VHS and recording it. It was a big deal back then too. And the replays did a really good buy rate as compared to the original air date as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like you get a bunch of people that weren't, maybe home on Sunday night, so they tune in the Nitro, they're catching up, they see these stills, they're like, shit, this looked really good. I have to order it when it plays again on Tuesday. Let's go. And again, you would watch it that one time. You didn't get it for another, 2-3 months till it was released on VHS.
Yeah.
And then you're buying VHS too, because you're like, damn, that was when Rey Mysterio debuted. I gotta rewatch. Fuck yeah! Like, let me buy it. It was a really good cycle back then.
Yeah, in my basement, I have a large collection of old, DVDs as well, but VHS. Like, I still remember I used to go out and buy these pay-per-views because that was the only way you can get them, and even renting them too from before our time. Yeah. Shout out to Before Our Time, Nick Storm and Young Anthony Aaron right after us. But there'd be Coliseum videos at these video stores. You'd go out there. I still remember distinctly. Days I'd stay home sick, and like you'd get that WrestleMania 6, SummerSlam 1990, you'd rent that video, pop it in, and you'd wear that shit out. You would just watch it over and over again, and that lives in my brain forever.
Dude, I can't tell you how many late fees I accumulated from WrestleMania 14, how many times I've rewatched that on VHS, loving it. Because Stone Cold said so VHS. those were like the things that it was just like, yeah, man, Mom, we gotta go to Blockbuster. It's Friday afternoon. I just got out of school. We got to go rent some wrestling because I got the whole weekend to fuck off and play, WCW versus NWO Revenge and just have a blast.
So before I let you get into the first match, do you remember WWF Magazine where they would show the last month's pay-per-view event, but they'd show the results, but they would show little screen captures of things that happened in the matches? I still remember the magazine I have for Royal Rumble 1999 where Vince won the Rumble, and they opened up with Gangrel versus X-Pac. And at the time, X-Pac, and is still Sean Waltman, shout out to you. I love X-Pac. He was my favorite wrestler. So I used to collect every pay-per-view results he had. And even win or lose, I'd cut out his screen captures and staple them to my wall in my bedroom. So awesome, I just remember that. It was like, because again, you couldn't print out things online. And when you first could, and like, in the 2000s, I would just waste ink printing out pictures of these wrestlers. And I remember this, they used to do this website, used to do South Park wrestlers for WCW and WWF.
I remember I remember those like crazy. I used to have them all fucking printed out.
And I would put them all on my wall. And like, it was such a big deal when they created a new one. And now thinking back, we look at the graphics that Chad makes for us, and Young Anthony makes killer graphics. And I want to say that some of the graphics I make, I would have been like, holy shit, I can't believe this was made. But something spoke to me about those South Park ones. Like, oh, they made Bull Buchanan in the right to censor gear. I can't believe it.
I love it, man. No, I used to be all over that too, man. It was the thing. I mean, people used to print those out and bring them to shows. You see the South Park wrestlers in the background, man. It was a big deal. It was cool as fuck.
If you guys don't know what we're talking about, Google South Park wrestlers. I'm sure they still have ones from guys today, but during that specific time, I'm thinking of 1999, 2000, 2001, because it was guys like Taz. I still remember Essa Rios had a really good one.
Kane had a great one.
Kane had a really good one.
McFoley, he had
so
Mr. Sacco. You know, it was the tie was all fucked up. It was great.
South Park wrestlers. I could do a whole episode on those things, but
that's gonna be like a shot of nostalgia quickie. Like we're just gonna talk about South Park wrestling.
I will show you all my favorites, and I wish I probably still have them printed somewhere, like in my stuff, like in a folder.
That's awesome. Hell yeah.
So anyway, let's move on to the opening match here on Nitro.
Absolutely, we get right into it. I mean, the bell rings off. We get Rick Steiner versus Stevie Ray, brother. You're talking two of the greatest tag teams at the time hopping in the ring. As it was a follow-up match from last week. It was fantastic. Yeah, Stevie Ray wasn't the Booker T of the group. You know, he wasn't the Shawn Michaels. He was more of the Marty Jannetty. But I always enjoyed a good Stevie Ray match. I thought this wasn't too bad. Again, super, super short kickoff. We're talking a 2-minute and 18-second run. Booker T comes in post-match, attacks Scott Steiner, comes running out, or he attacks Rick. Scott Steiner comes running out, and it was good shit, man. I like the animosity between the tag teams. It made you feel the matches more. So like these single matches between tag matches, which we don't see all too often nowadays, those are cool shit, man. So again, Rick Steiner gets the win. Stevie Ray cannot cut it, but it was good stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean, match went really quick, like you mentioned, and this is how they used to build tag team feuds over the course of the beginning. They would just pair two guys up, and then they'd have a match. It would end clean, and it's funny to see where we'd go next week, where Stevie Ray lost in such a convincing way.
Yeah,
where Harlem Heat would go, and it just showed how equal all the tag teams were at this point, and how deep the tag division was. I mean, with the Steiners and Harlem Heat, I can watch the two of these teams go out all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, Harlem Heat's the babies. These are the young dudes in the group. I mean, the Steiners have already had a pretty solid ass career in WWF, and you know before that. But like, it's cool to see them all work together. I just love. I can watch Rick Steiner work all day. I can watch young Scott Steiner work all day. You throw him in the team. Like Tom hates the Harlem Heat. I don't understand why. He never watched it. The Harlem Heat's great, man. Stevie Ray gets a nice little chef's kiss from me.
So after the match, Booker T runs in and starts pounding on Rick Steiner, but Scott Steiner runs in for the save. He leaps on top of Rick to save his brother from Booker, who lowers the boom on Scott instead. And that was it. So we move on to the next match here. A quick one, as you mentioned, just, you know, one of those things. And that's what, as we're seeing, that's akin to what Nitro would give us from week to week.
Yeah.
So next match here, we have Joe Gomez defeating Disco Inferno. Yeah, honestly, Joe Gomez, I have no recollection of this guy.
The legendary Joe Gomez.
Exactly.
Hall of Famer Joe Gomez.
Yeah. So all you need to know is Joe Gomez is an absolute nobody who nobody cares about, is still beating Disco Inferno and nobody cares. Yeah, so that's it. Disco is a jobber here. It went longer than the first match, though.
They could have took 2 minutes off of this and put it on the first match, and it would have made the first match shine a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Booking's crazy. Fuck Disco Inferno. Sorry, Glenn. I don't respect you.
So before we move on to the next match, we have Ric Flair and the ladies in the back with Gene Okerlund. Deborah confesses she convinced Mongo to turn on Kevin Green for the money. Flair goes on and on about how crazy Savage is when he acts like a complete lunatic. Like you mentioned, they're hinting that Savage is unhinged, that he potentially could join up as a third guy. And right now it seems kind of crazy that he would be. And I'm not sure in my mind if it would have had the same effect as legendary as Macho was. He seemed like one of those characters that always bordered on. He was a face with an edge. Hogan, you can't say the same about. So I don't know if him turning heel would have had the same effect. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it. I mean, it probably would have went far, but not as far. It would have went farther than Jeff Jarrett, but it wouldn't have gone as far as Hulk Hogan. And eventually Macho Man does turn heel and joins the NWO anyway, so it doesn't really fucking matter.
Yeah, I think Disco Inferno joins NWO too, so I don't know where you.
Oh God. I mean, that was like, when they were giving out shirts when you entered the building and signed in for the day. They're like, here's your NWO shirt, get to work. Shit happens.
Yeah,
it's all good.
As they say, jump the shark. But yeah, so let's move into the next match here. You have Arn Anderson, Chris Benoit taking on the American Males.
Yeah, probably one of the better American male matches I think we've seen since we started doing this. I mean, how can it not be? You're fighting Arn Anderson and Chris Benoit, right? It was great, awesome back and forth, man. Yeah, you got the four. It's still crazy going back and watching Benoit matches. Like I love them, but it's they've blacklisted him so much. Like I'm like, wow, they put him on the network. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good match though. I mean, we had, well, as you put in our lovely notes, the old Crockett stomping grounds, Richmond, and you're watching the four horsemen, two of the four horsemen tearing shit up. Buff Bagwell looked pretty good. It was a decent fucking match, man.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd was rabid for them, and the reactions really make the matches. And we talked about this on Honor Society yesterday when we were discussing specifically the pure title match that's coming up with Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia. And I think what was missing from that first match with Wheeler and Josh Woods was that no one really cared for Josh Woods, and there wasn't this not to disparage the guy because he's a good wrestler, but for the AEW audience, and they weren't familiar with him, so the crowd paired with the pure rules, it took away from the match, even though it was a good match. And the crowd plays an equal part. They're the third dance partner, and that just took this match to the next level. And like the atmosphere, it felt like the Four Horsemen were a big deal. And Chris Benoit is not an original horseman, but paired with Arn, it feels like a big deal.
Yeah, no, I listen. There's many iterations of the Four Horsemen. I count this iteration. It's Benoit, it's Malenko. That was my horseman, man. Like I love the shirts. I love the gimmick. It was always good for me. He always had flair. Arn, it was good shit.
So the ending saw Arn managing to nail Riggs as he comes off the ropes. Benoit gives Riggs a front suplex off the top rope, rolls him up with a little help from Arn, gets the 3, 6 minutes and 49 seconds, and Richmond absolutely comes unglued and literally
should.
Yeah. And they just go absolutely insane. And Arn and Benoit are the heroes, the conquering heroes, even though they're bordering on being heels, obviously, as the Horsemen. But, when they're in their hometown and they're over.
Yeah. I mean, listen, baby Benoit, too, still coming out as hard as hell with those chops. Just killing it. It's wild.
So the next match here, we have the rematch between John Tenta and Big Bubba, a.k.a. Big Boss Man. So as we talked last week, Tenta as Earthquake, Bubba as Big Boss Man. Both these characters are legendary big men. You could bring down as two of the more intimidating wrestling personas in the history of wrestling. But this iteration of the both of them is probably their worst iteration. Maybe John Tenta's version of himself as the Shark is only worse than this, but there's no momentum behind this. It feels like wrestling's moving away from what these guys were doing. And this seemed like old WCW was dropped like a satellite or a UFO in the middle of this card. It just was really ugly. And again, this match goes 4 minutes and 41 seconds, and it's just an ugly match.
It was ugly like Tenta's hairline. It was so bad. Boss Man, I mean, at least his gimmick wasn't super shit, but it was just too much, man. Like over the top promo, he gets on there, he's like, yeah, he's rubbing his beard and shit. Like nobody wants to see that. Jimmy Hart doesn't fucking help at all either. Yeah, Daddy, we got Big Bubba, baby.
I think like what we're just learning about Jimmy Hart is like he's just not good. Like he wasn't good then, he isn't good now, and I think
he's a
we talk about managers throughout the history of wrestling, and people talk about Jimmy Hart being one of the better ones. I just disagree. I just don't think he's ever added anything to whatever characters he's been with. I can't think of one guy he's added something substantial to the character. I for the life of me, I can't think of one.
Nice guy. I've met he's always at Hogan's like meet and greets. I've met him a few times. Always super sweet. Always like, yeah, Daddy. But that's him. He's the male cheerleader of 90s wrestling.
But I just think the managers when they're at their best. Like I think of Bobby Heenan, he brings so much to the table with the guys he's managing. Even like Paul Heyman, with him with Lesnar's mouthpiece, and when he was with Punk and when he was with everybody. I mean, go down the line. Even when he was with Cesaro for that light amount of time, and anyone that Paul Heyman touched, he made better. I can't say the same about Jimmy Hart. He's just there, and he's like goofy, especially when he's supposed to be with this bad heel. It just feels weird.
He's tagging on to everything and anything. Basically, he's just trying to ride coattails. That's what it feels like. He's like, oh, Big Bubba's coming out. Oh, I'm going to be Big Bubba's manager. Harlem Heat. Hell yeah, I'll be a Harlem Heat's manager. There's just no love for it.
And there's no nuance to like changing who you are a little bit. I think with Heenan, when he was with the Heenan family, he's managing Andre the Giant. He felt much different than when he was managing Rick Rude. He just had a different approach to how he was standing in the ring. And Jimmy Hart was the same obnoxious megaphone level spray paint jacket. It never had the same appeal. And again, we're getting stuck on minutia of this like small match here, but Jimmy Hart, throughout the grand scheme of things, managers should emphasize the best parts of these characters, especially when they have deficits in their promo, their in-ring work. They need to be lifted to the next level. And I can't say Jimmy Hart's ever done that for me. Maybe someone disagrees. If you guys disagree in the chat, feel like Jimmy Hart, tell me who Jimmy Hart has made better as his manager.
Yeah. Good.
Very,
very well put. But all the love to Jimmy Hart. I don't have bad feelings towards the man.
No, not at all. And this is all objective to just wrestling character. And the man may be the nicest man of all time. And I take your word for it. You are a nice man yourself. And if you think Jimmy Hart's a nice man, I'll get a drink with him. But
I don't know why we're talking about John Tenta and you bring up Jimmy Hart.
Well, that's it. I'm unfollowing you on social media. All right. So next year on the way to the locker room, Bubba tells the viewing audience to watch the Grin Record Bash replay, which Shivani plugs the entire show to see him beat the crap out of Tenta. So yeah,
replays, man, you got to make replay money.
That's how you get the money.
Yeah.
So after the break, Gene Okerlund is in the locker room with Randy Savage. Randy's psychiatrist told him he was OCD. One cool dude. You know, Randy, you should probably go seek someone else's counsel if I were you. That doesn't sound like a psychiatrist to me at all. Gene Okerlund with the one-hit wonder or the one-liners is just, you know, it's classic. Gene Okerlund's awesome. Timeless.
That's a really good pun though. One cool dude, you know. Sounds.
So we move to hour number 2. Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan take control, and this is the best iteration of the announced team. Bobby Heenan and Tony Schiavone complement each other so well. Schiavone's so good, and to me, I watched WWF as a kid. Jim Ross, the voice of my childhood, but Tony Schiavone, man, he's quickly approaching my favorite announcer of all time because of what he's doing in AEW, and also watching what he's doing here. He's timeless.
Yeah, no, he's on his game still too, which is insane after all these years. Hasn't skipped a beat. Like he isn't, you know, he's just still fucking Tony Schiavone. It's the best.
Yeah, so Tony's sticking around because Bischoff is in the hospital thanks to the Outsiders. So Bischoff's supposed to be at ringside, but they're really selling the fact that he's hurt. So yeah, I mean, also shout out to Tony Schiavone, that figure that they revealed during FanFest for Double or Nothing. Just can't wait to get that figure. Those should be coming soon. What is that? September? They should be coming October.
Well, Jim Ross was up for pre-order, so he's going to be shooting out, I think, like next month. So I think Tony should be right behind him. I think Tony went up for pre-order too.
I think it was
Excalibur's the only one that's not out yet. So
Tony should be shipping when? What do you think? Like next month?
Probably. Yeah, I would say before fall. September. We'll shoot September. September should be a good month for him.
And the crazy part is he was involved in so much of this classic wrestling where the toy industry was taking off, and he didn't get one figure, man. Like that's insane to me.
Yeah, it's wild. And to think about Disco Inferno got a figure, and Tony Schiavone did it, man. And Tony Schiavone carried the company way more.
Yeah, I mean, even like the fact Jack Pacific was making announcers. They made Jim Ross, and they made the announce table, and
you know they had the classic superstar line. How is Tony Schiavone not in that? They had Don Morocco. You can't get Tony Schiavone. It's crazy. Yeah,
that's a good point. Because they do own all the intellectual property of WCW. You might as well just go into it and dive deep because you got fans like me. Like I pre-ordered that immediately. Tony Schiavone is absolutely like I had to have it, and I want to get it signed from him. Like I just have to get it signed.
Jack Pacific did not shy away from the WCW franchise either. They made a lot of good WCW figures. So it's crazy that we didn't get a Schiavone. Man,
so you want to take the lead here on the next match here with Ric Flair and Randy Savage? Big match here.
Yes, way better than what we're going to see at the end of the month. So we got Ric Flair defeating Randy Savage, and it was probably the best match of the night on this one. You know, it was just awesome. I loved Flair. I loved Macho Man's gear. That was the one thing that stood out so much. Wild. And I was sending pictures back and forth because we were talking about Comic-Con reveals. And I was like, this is the Macho Mans that they should be making. These toyetic, beautiful Macho Mans. Macho Man comes out. Flair comes out talking all the mad shit before the match. You know, and it was great stuff. A lot of good back and forth. This is probably your pinnacle of Flair Macho Man matches. I think this is probably one of the greatest pairings we've seen these two get into it before. So much that we hit a commercial break. Crazy. So much we hit 2 commercial breaks.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen on WCW all that often. But yeah, that was a great match. You know, they were talking lots of bad shit. It was 8 minutes 7 seconds. I mean, that's fucking fantastic for a Nitro. Yeah, Macho Man couldn't cut it. Flair got him with the 1, 2, 3, man. Crazy.
Great match. And back in the day, it was blasphemous that they would have a commercial break. And I remember used to turning on Nitro because, again, full transparency, I was a WWF kid. They never had commercials in the middle of the matches. And now it's commonplace. You have picture in picture, at least you're seeing the match unfold. If you want to squint a little bit in the corner of the screen as the Red Lobster commercials in the corner. But in WCW, it was commonplace because they were capitalizing on the financial, because it was a big spot to be selling those spots in the middle of a Ric Flair Randy Savage match. That spot would go for much more than in between 2 matches. And it was fiscally very intelligent on their end. So as frustrating it was as a fan, obviously you miss some action. The fans in the building are seeing the action live and in person, but it takes away from the flow of the match. And to me, this match was awesome. You said these guys flow so well together. I still think their match at WrestleMania 8 was the best match that they've had. And I still, you know, going forward, I think they've just really jived in WCW. And that, you know, there's some criticism on the end where they give away these big matches and they start to water them down and make them feel less special. It doesn't take away the differences between feeling special and quality match are 2 different things. The match just gets better and better. They know each other like the back of their hand. They're able to work each other so well.
Yeah,
they know what they're thinking as far as next move goes. So I think Ric Flair and Randy Savage are 2 of the best opponents that any wrestler has ever had as a dance partner. And you know, I'll stand by that they are made for each other as far as in-ring style. So this was a great match. Ric Flair gets the win, as you mentioned.
I died on that hill.
Yeah, it was an awesome Nitro match. If you want to talk about TV matches in 1996, this is better than you could have ever asked for. And you were not getting it on the other channel.
And I forgot all about Mongo coming in at the end of it. Yeah, so that you're finally getting, after all this hype, Mongo in a ring, you know, so we're getting all this buildup about it. Oh shit, here comes Mondo, or Mongo, as they say on Botchamania, man. Dude, I'll say this now. I will overlook, Mongo was a beast of a man back in the day. He had the look, at least. He was a brick wall. So pretty cool to see him, you know, getting into it with the Horsemen and shit. And it was interesting, man. Still,
whether you like him or not, Mongo's was made to feel very important. So if you're a big Mongo fan, this was probably one of the best moments he's had in WCW as far as being highlighted. This is the thing that goes down in Horseman lore. Like, this is a moment that stands forever for the test of time. And I'm sure, you know, Mongo had pictures of this, and this was a big moment for Mongo and his wrestling career. Yeah,
I memean, you've seen the picture of myself and Mongo, a very, very jazzy Mike Belcaster, with shooting up the 4 Horsemen signal, though. Like, I was in love when I met him. I was just like, dude, yeah. I was like, you remember you doing the 4 Horsemen gimmick? He's like, hell yeah, brother, slept up that fucking horns. It was cool. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of what goes on, you have to remember it's time and place. And this got over really well with the fans, especially here in the home of the Horsemen. And I think that's a big thing to take into. They time and place, and they read the crowd, and it got a really good reaction. So that's what it's all about.
Hell yeah.
So in the back, Gene Okerlund was hanging out with WCW World Champ The Giant, Kevin Sullivan, and Jimmy Hart. Giant challenges the Horsemen to come after him. Sullivan doesn't care about whether or not the Giant has been picked as one of the 3 men to meet the interruption and their challenge. This was weird. It was a weird segment. Yeah. I understand they're trying to bridge that gap as far as alliances go with the Giant, Sullivan, and that whole crew want to make sure Giant feels like he has friends. This was weird. I don't know. It was a weird segment, and that's what I put in my notes. It was just a weird thing, and it didn't feel like it was building towards anything.
Yeah, I could pass on seeing Kevin Sullivan for the rest of the year, and probably for the rest of my life. It was just that. Yeah, I got nothing else to add to it. The whole thing, just
So we do get a promo for our good friend Glacier, who blood runs cold, and instead of showing video footage, they were showing stills from the Great American Bash after. So the blood runs cold promo was actually really, really good.
Mortal Kombat music. Sorry, Mortal Kombat-esque music. Don't want anybody getting a cease and desist.
Yeah, exactly. This is the type of music we use on the tavern to sound like the New World Order music, but it's not quite. It's sped up just a little bit.
I was pumped, man. This was so cool. These were great little promos, little vignettes for him. I thought I would have been so fucking pumped, like if he got over more.
And I think if you would have had him debut a year before this, he would have got really over, because I think everyone was Sub-Zero in 1995 on Halloween. Like, I think they just missed the boat.
Yeah. Then like not by much either. Probably, but if this was 3-4 months earlier, yeah, it probably would have fucking went over huge.
Yeah, maybe if they would have I mean, they could not have predicted where the wrestling industry was going. And I know if they could have, they would have done it sooner. But this reality-based programming was exactly the opposite of what they were doing with this Glacier stuff. And it was just, he debuted in September, and we'll obviously get to that when we get there. And wrestling had changed so much from when he first started airing the vignettes, and it died where it was. And it just, when you watch him come, you know how big it could be.
No, I mean, Mortal Kombat came out in 92, at the end of 92. So they had 93, 94, 95 to work on something and get it out there, and they fucking shit the bed on it.
Yeah, what was his obligations? Like, did he have, that's why we got to get Ray Lloyd here on.
We got to talk to him.
We need we need him here on Shot Nostalgia.
I need a Glacier 8x10.
I actually have a Glacier.
Oh my goodness.
I do. Hold on. I'm going to pull it right here.
I'm so excited about it, but we need some Glacier. We need a fucking Glacier figure now that you got me talking about figures, man. That would have been the Comic-Con win on that WCW stage if you slapped the Glacier figure up there. He was so toyetic, the blonde hair, the mask, he came out, he hit the snow. If they would have made a way to make the snow come down on this Comic-Con piece, I would have been so fucking pumped for it, man. He does not get enough love. Absolutely does not.
He does not. And I'm looking for his 8x10. I have a whole bunch of 8x10s on here. I do have his 8x10 that I will show you in 1 second. But if you want to go into the next match here with the World Cruiserweight Championship between Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio, this is one of those matches that this is what you're here for.
Yeah, Joe, listen, Gene Okerlund tries to get a few words from him real quick. Rey Mysterio just comes out. No habla inglés. He's just speaking Spanish to his homies, as he should be. I mean, it's Rey Mysterio. Your WCW World Cruiserweight Champion Dean Malenko defeats Rey Mysterio Jr. Totally awesome. You can't put this is another this match flows like water down a river. So beautiful. Shit that we see now every week. You're seeing maneuvers back and forth, really good wrestling. This is 1996. These are the guys that created this love of really intense matches, and I highly recommend go back and watch it. 8 minutes 42 seconds to a long cruiserweight match. This is what got eyes on the product back in the day. So I'm all over it.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I talk about the match, I do have my Glacier 8x10. Here we go.
Look at that shit. Tell me you don't want to toy that. Goddamn.
So I got a whole bunch of 8x10s because I was subscribing to the Pro Wrestling Crate. So I just have all these 8x10s. I do have FTR, which is framed behind me.
Hell yeah.
But this match, I mean, what else can you say about the two of these guys going? We talked about Flair and chemistry. Malenko and Mysterio, they continue to have chemistry all throughout their career and eventually meeting up down the line later in life. But at this time and place, these two are just the cream of the crop as far as cruiserweights go. And I don't think they obviously introduced the Cruiserweight Championship only a few months ago at this point, and Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio took it to the next level. I think having this feud to base and really establish it as a weekly spot where people can expect to see high-flying action and slowly introduce the lucha style to them and not inundate them with it. And I think that's a big thing to consider, is that when WWF tried to do the same thing in the Royal Rumble in 1995, when they were working collaboratively with AAA and CMLL, and you're having all these luchas and Mexican superstars come into the Royal Rumble, it just became too much. It was unknown. Fans sort of rejected it because it wasn't what they were used to. What WCW did is they slowly injected it into the weekly show where it became highlighted. It wasn't too much for them. And then eventually it became what everyone was seeking out. And it became such a huge part of what people were watching in WCW. And like I said, week after week, you come for the big stars, Hogan, Nash, Hall. You stay for the quality wrestling with the Malenkos and the Rey Mysterios, and eventually Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit. Those guys keep you in the fold because of the style of wrestling. And it was the perfect mix. It was like a gateway drug. Oh, you know Hogan, you know Hall, you know Nash. And then when you watch as my cat just jumped on me. If you
He's a Rey
watch
Mysterio fan, it's okay.
Yeah, he just did the plancha on top of me. He did the Commander spot when he ran the ropes and jumped on me. It was awesome. Shout out to Commander from GCW. I love you, man. Thank you for following me on Instagram. These guys have such a good rhythm here that it makes fans tune in, and this is stuff you're not seeing on the North American scene. And I think right now we take it for granted. We see guys like Rey Fenix, the aforementioned Commander. Rey Mysterio was doing it week after week. We see this style of wrestling so much now that when you watch now, it's like, oh, this is a really good match. But you have to understand, this existed on this card with John Tenton and Big Bubba. Like this was happening at the same time.
It's crazy. And like, talk about somebody who paved the way. Both guys, you're talking Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio put on top tier matches every single Nitro, every single Thunder, whatever show they were on. You knew you were getting quality shit when you tuned in and you've seen these guys coming out or seen these guys in the ring. So yeah, absolutely, man.
So we move to the main event. WCW World Heavyweight Champion, the Giant, defending his championship against Scott Steiner. Well before Scott Steiner was due to win the championship years and years later. This was the Scott Steiner that he was getting more and more jacked. He's becoming a little less mobile as far as in-ring work. He still was the Scott Steiner I think we knew as a tag team specialist. This was a good match to me. This is the first time Giant's gone more than like 2 minutes in a while, 8 minutes and 16 seconds. This was a really cool finish because we watched Jimmy jump in the ring, tries to get the chair away from Scott Steiner as he's trying to hit the Giant with it. He gets shoved away. Scott breaks the chair over Giant's shoulders and has no effect on him. Absolutely no sold it. Steiner had no clue what to do. He was in shock and he got a choke slam. And then to me, this is what you need to do to the Giant. He looks so strong following this match. And what a cool finish. Very unique.
Yeah, I loved watching him no-sell shit, especially like chair shots. And you just get angry and frustrated and pissed off. And the Giant, I mean, everybody can say what they want. I'm loving this run. I think it's the best we've seen of the Giant in his entire career, probably.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the big thing with the Giant is it's a matter of presentation and making him feel special. And I know he's on there every week defending the championship, but it's working for him because he's looking stronger and stronger. And this is the first time we see him challenged by anybody, and it kept the Steiners strong. Scott having his ribs taped up for what happened earlier in the show, gives the Giant a little bit of an advantage, but it also makes Steiner look really, really big going into their push to get the tag team title. So, as Chad likes to say here on the tavern, is iron sharpens iron, and these two guys went at it and they made each other stronger.
Yeah, and the taped ribs really added to, Steiner taking a loss. It was okay. You're like, oh, he's injured. It's okay that he loses to the Giant. It doesn't hurt his reputation, doesn't hurt his match quality, it doesn't hurt anything. So very, very good job booking here for WCW in general. I thought this was fantastic.
And this is a nuanced way of building a feud because you tie into the fact that Steiner didn't win the title because of the attack that the Harlem Heat laid on him. His ribs are taped up. You have to imagine if he was healthy, quote unquote, he would have got the win. So that also plants the seeds for a Harlem Heat Steiner feud when eventually you get Harlem Heat winning the titles. But this was an awesome, awesome main event to end Nitro. I had a great time watching this. And like week after week, you start to see like they're really getting into a rhythm. It's like a train leaving the station and they're just on fire right now.
Yeah, 100%.
So to end the show, as usual, we have Gene Okerlund making an announcement, and it's Luger, Sting, and Randy Savage have been chosen to face the Outsiders and their mystery partner on July 7th at Bash of the Beach. We say we're out of time. They got to get out of there, and they left. So now we have officially on the card the 6-man tag match that we know how it ends. Luger, Sting, and Randy Savage defending the right for WCW against the Outsiders. It's the first time that they've been talked as the Outsiders. They've been called the Interruption. They've been unnamed, but they called them the Outsiders here, which stuck. It eventually became their name.
No, it's got a really nice. It's a good way to sell them. It really is. It's like the Warriors, like you need just one good gimmick name for them, and it tells the rest of the future. The Outsiders stuck. It became one of the best tag teams in the world because of it.
And you could sit in a room somewhere in a boardroom, and I guarantee nobody would come up with this. And it just came out of Okerlund's mouth.
Yeah.
And it's I'm not sure if he's the first person to say it. I don't want to give him credit for it, but you know what? Let's give him credit for it. calling them the outsiders. Some of the best stuff happens organically. And you watch this in wrestling that, again, you could sit in a room, get some coffee going, drinks, and try to figure out the name that, what are we calling these guys? The pulverizers, interrupters. The outsiders just came up so organically because that's what they were doing. They are from the outside. The outside is it was perfect.
Absolutely perfect, man.
All right. So we move on to the next episode here. And it is, let me just change the banner quick. We move on to WCW Monday Nitro live from Charlotte, North Carolina, the Independence Arena, June 24th, 1996. All of our champions are the same. As mentioned, we open the show with Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko. And again, they show Bischoff taking the powerbomb again from Kevin Nash. This is probably about the 100th time we've seen this replay, and they're trying, and I've seen it way before this. They're really, really laying it in. And again, it was unheard of to have an announcer get attacked. So I guess that's why they're really hyping it up. Like this was crazy.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. And again, there might have been a second week replay of that pay-per-view. So they might have been trying to get a little bit more sales out of that Great American Bash match. But more importantly, putting 100%. Over the violence and disruption that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall brought to the company.
Yeah, and I think it's this chaotic. And you watch, they're in street clothes, they're not in wrestling tights, and they're, Bischoff really didn't deserve, even though he's not really well liked as far as fans go, he didn't really do anything. He just wouldn't provide any information to them, and they're just unpredictable. And if they would do that to Bischoff, what are they going to do to the rest of the talent? It was unheard of. And again, I keep repeating myself, but it became the norm in wrestling. But you have to look at it through the lens of this never happened. You think about how crazy it was with Bret Hart pushing down Vince McMahon in 1997. This was before that.
Yeah.
So Gene Okerlund interviews the opposition for the yet unnamed interruption. They are Sting, Lex Luger, and Randy Savage. All three of them have their face painted to show unity. So Lex forgets where he's at and starts to say WWF, but changes midstream and tries to put a C in there somewhere. So go back and watch Lex Luger stumble over his words. We're live, pal.
Yeah, WWFCW.
So the Steiners come by to let Sting and Luger know that they've got their backs. Now Harlem Heat steps in, and we've got a huge argument on their hands. Triangle match tonight for the tag team championships. Schiavone makes sure to let everybody know that he's heard a rumor that the interruption is in the building somewhere and could strike the announcer's booth at any moment to attack him or Zbyszko. Let's talk about that interview quick with Luger, Randy Savage, and Sting, all wearing face paint. Kind of toyetic. I mean, Sting, we're used to seeing face paint, and Luger wears it every once in a while, but Savage in that face paint, pretty damn cool, man.
We got a really cool 3-pack out of it. There was a Target thing. It's awesome. You get Sting, Luger, and Macho Man all wearing the face paint. Like shit. I mean, we haven't up until that point. We didn't even get a Lex Luger in his black gear, with his ponytail. This is the first time we got Lex Luger like that in toy form. So very cool, very toyetic, very awesome shit. So big kudos for them making that. I'm happy that we got that 3-pack.
So the first match we have opening here is Public Enemy defeating the Blue Bloods. This match goes 5 minutes and 49 seconds. Crowd in Charlotte was hot for Public Enemy.
They were.
They didn't bring a table out this week. Johnny Grunge was wearing both ends of a long door collar and a chain around his neck on his way to the ring and put over the double door collar match between Public Enemy and the Nasties at Bash at the Beach, which is upcoming. So Rocco and Regal start the match. Regal's so offended that someone like Rocco Rock could drop kick him in the face. So Regal's facial expressions are on point. Regal's just an absolute legend. We're seeing the best of William Regal as far as WCW goes in this little run here. Great stuff.
Yeah, no, I love it. You could see the disdain on his face during the match. And Regal's one of those storytellers. You can watch him, and he really, he does the facials you need. He really fucking sells what's happening in the ring and what's happening to him, and his disgust and his disdain with everything. It's beautiful, man. I love Regal. Doesn't get enough credit.
He really doesn't. And I was watching Ricky Starks on Wednesday about during his whole open challenge match, and he does a lot of that little stuff well with the facial expressions and just the body mannerisms. And it's the small things that really help you become a meaningful character on a TV show on a weekly basis. And, William Regal did a great job of that. And again, stuck in this whole crappy mid 90s, early 90s Blue Bloods gimmick, he makes the most of it. And he gets heat. He's garnering big heat, even though you probably shouldn't care about this gimmick, but it's William Regal, and it's fun. Like, he makes it fun, and you want to see him get his ass beat. That's the beautiful part about it.
No, absolutely. And just to throw a little bit more credit on to Ricky Starks, I was watching Being the Elite this week, and they show the whole spot where he's in the corner taking everybody running at him, Keith Lee, the Bucks, and every time he gets hit, he gives the best facials, like like you believe that he's fucked up, and it's awesome, man. So good shit, dude.
and you talk about guys that watch and know their history of wrestling, and we were having all those tryouts in Nashville for WWE, and they want to have people that don't watch wrestling, they're just natural athletes. The thing that you're missing is that small things that only fans pick up on, that when you get in the ring, you just know certain things that as a fan you're looking for. And you can tell Ricky Starks grew up loving professional wrestling, William Regal more of the same, that if you have a love and a passion for something, it just, the athletic ability, sure, that's awesome. And it's great to do all these great moves and be an athlete. But there's also the love of professional wrestling that as a fan yourself, you know what fans want to see. And that's what makes you, I guess, meaningful on the screen. And Ricky Starks, William Regal have that. And I'm not sure, guys like Gable Stevenson is going to take a little bit of time for him to bridge that gap when he comes into wrestling. I mean, Kurt Angle did it. But sometimes you have to have the natural charisma. And I guess that has to be tapped into.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the same about Ronda Rousey, but she was a fan of the business,
right?
So it's gonna be interesting, crazy.
All right, move into the next match here. We got Kevin Sullivan taking on Kip Abbey. Highlight of the match. It ends in DQ. Everybody.
Yeah, it's we already poured our shots before.
It's time.
Let's get to the good stuff real quick. Let's just take the shot.
Yeah, ends in DQ. So I mean, the match went 2 minutes, and I guess he wins by DQ.
Yeah, Kip a B, future Hall of Famer, doing great shit.
Yeah, so
2 minutes.
If you guys looking for something to like cut off quick, if you're taking shots with us, one thing, but just, you don't have to watch this match. It's all good. Kevin Sullivan sucks.
But if you're taking shots, sit through the turmoil. It makes the shots better.
It does, yeah. I did appreciate, because it's the one DQ that we got. We didn't get one DQ on that first episode of Nitro.
I know, it's crazy. And I mean, one DQ for 2 weeks of Nitro, that's something
unheard of.
Not sitting right here,
Yeah.
So cheers to Kevin Sullivan's shitty wrestling and Kip a B. Bob.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, again, that match sucks. So I'll let you take over again with D Malenko doing his thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Let me get situated here. Another future Hall of Famer, hard work, Bobby Walker. I mean, these guys must have been like stagehands or like teamsters that were just around the building. They're like, you would make a great wrestler. Go wrestle Dean Malenko. So yeah, listen, for hard work, Bobby Walker coming out very confident, very doing good. You can tell he's got that indie vibe going on with yeah, I don't know who you think's gonna get involved in a random fucking clusterfuck, but we got Disco Inferno comes out, he cuts off the fucking match. It was just a mess, and like I don't know what to make of it. This should have been a DQ. I'm about to do a shot just because of this. For a Dean, I mean, this is a Dean Malenko match that was a clusterfuck, which is a rarity. So I mean, that's what it is. It was a 4-minute, 39-second match. I don't know what Disco Inferno was doing. I don't get any
Disco
of it.
Inferno versus Dean Malenko for the Cruiserweight Championship at Bash of the Peach?
Yeah, it's just fuck, man.
We just saw Disco Inferno lose in, who did he lose to? I gotta go
2
back.
minutes. Yeah, it was the shit. No, it was 3 minutes. It was a longer match than the other one.
Joe Gomez.
Joe Gomez, man. Future Hall of Famer Joe Gomez.
Where's the WCW rankings at this point? Like, where's Joe Gomez? He has a shot on the line. Come on.
It's a clusterfuck, man. But listen, it's a more screen time, I guess. Better. Dean Malenko deserves better than that. God damn it. Yeah, shit match. Malenko won, obviously, because we know Bobby Walker's not going over, and we know fucking Disco's not doing anything important.
All right, the next match we have here on the docket is Eddie Guerrero defeating the Barbarian in the match that we both were saying that we didn't know we needed, but I'm glad we got it. This was a lot of fun. Didn't know that these guys ever locked up. This was a lot of fun to see. Eddie is now chasing after the United States Championship, not the Cruiserweight belt. So he's facing some bigger men down the line to get a future U.S. Championship shot. Eddie knocks Barbarian back a little bit with drop kicks, but he thinks he can cross body block the guy too. Gets caught and smashed in the corner. Barbarian hits a super sick power bomb that connects on Eddie. Eddie's just, I mean, unnatural. He gets better over time, but he's very locked in here.
He's great here, yeah.
So Charlotte's hot for this. They want to see Barbarian just absolutely squash Guerrero as into a pulp. You could just tell that they just want Barbarian to get blood on Eddie, and I think Eddie's really drawing a lot of heat from the Charlotte crowd. So really well done by Eddie. The ending saw Eddie going up top for the belly-to-belly superplex. Eddie has to roll out after that one. Barbarian grabs Eddie on the apron, attempts to superplex him back in. Eddie falls on top of him out of nowhere, gets the 3, 5 minutes and 38 seconds. This reminded me again, I brought it up before, Darby and Brody King, but a bigger guy taking on a smaller guy. When it's done right, it's done really well. It's a lot of fun to watch. And it has to be done in a way that's perfect, because to have a smaller guy defeat a bigger guy, it has to be done with realistic offense. And just like Darby Allin, Eddie Guerrero has very realistic offense, especially against a bigger opponent. It is there's a lot of realism in it. And the things he's doing, he's attacking the knees, he's going low, trying to knock him down to his size. And then, with the speed too, Eddie Guerrero's all over the place and going to the top rope and the arm drags. Eddie Guerrero's moveset is just like you would remember watching in WWE if you haven't watched him in WCW. Absolutely great. This was an awesome match and a sneaky fun watch, because the Barbarian, as like slow and lumbering as he is, he played his part really well.
Yeah, no, he did a great job. And like, I just love this match. And it was good, fun, it was just good shit. And I hate to keep bringing up toys, but it's Comic-Con weekend, so forgive me. But this Eddie Guerrero if they've made one similar to it, but they didn't make it with the jacket. I want that glittery, fucking beautiful jacket he came out with. I thought that it was super, super toyetic. I loved these early Guerrero matches. Just so fun to watch.
Yeah, and Eddie's look is, I mean, this is all time. This is the Eddie I remember, with the mustache and the hair. He's, a lot of love gets put on the Latino Heat version of him, where he's in love with China and the roses and all that. And then also people have a lot of love for when he gets his jacked up and he gets his world title run with the short bleached hair. Well, the bleached little highlights in it. This Eddie, though, is such a fun iteration of him.
Absolutely. This is the Eddie Guerrero I know and love. Of course I respect his later career, but this is where I fell in love with him. So damn good.
So before we move on to the next match in hour 2, Eddie is interviewed by Gene Okerlund, and he says he wants a rematch from the match he had 3 months ago with Conan for the U.S. title at Uncensored, because during the match, Guerrero got hit in the maracas off a leapfrog. Okerlund asks him what he thinks of the hostile takeover match, and then cuts him off to go to commercial. So weird that they, long-term booking, did they just forget that Eddie got a low blow and lost the match against Conan? I certainly enjoyed that match back at Uncensored. Yeah. I thought they forgot about it. Eddie sort of floundered around in the mid-card as doing other things. Maybe they wanted to focus him on the Cruiserweight Championship. We do see Eddie go back to the Cruiserweight Championship, thankfully, with the Rey Mysterio match in 97. But I'm here for it. I want to see Eddie versus Conan again.
No, I'm all for the Mexico Heavyweight Championship.
Exactly.
Honored so well with Conan.
So Tony Schiavone, Bobby Heenan are taking over hour 2, and we get into the next match here. If you want to take over,
we got which I thought was a fucking awesome match. We got Arn Anderson, Chris Benoit with Steve Mongo McMichael in their corner, going against the Rock and Roll Express, man. You're talking about fucking some great Charlotte, North Carolina pro wrestling, man. And this is everything you could possibly want. You got 4 amazing competitors in there. Ricky Morton is just a fucking treasure. So it's so good. So awesome, man. I just really enjoyed it. Yeah, man. I wish Rock and Roll Express got more love in this time. I wish they would have got a run for the tag titles at this era. Because they were great, man. Awesome in the ring. Just fucking awesome to see him. Sucks that what could have been, you know.
So I put in my notes, the crowd is so pro Horseman. You think the Rock and Roll Express, it killed somebody.
Yeah,
and
heels.
like it's crazy to see Rock and Roll work his heels because they're just naturally baby faces. This match was awesome. I mean, anytime you have the four of these guys, like you mentioned, you said it best. It was just a lot of fun. And Ricky Morton and Charles Gibson, they're just a lot of, I mean, they just have the ability to just work the crowd, and it's really fun to see them here.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, you would never have a bad time with Ricky and Robert in the ring, man.
I said Charles Gibson. I meant to say Robert.
It's okay.
Gibson. It sounded wrong coming out.
I came in for this. I was thinking Charles Robinson when you said.
It's
I don't know why.
Nostalgia. But
we'll blame
the crazy part about this match is like you had the ending get a little bit chaotic because, you know, as fun as it is to see this match, and yeah, it was 6 minutes and 30 seconds, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But Desperado Joe Gomez comes out to the ring to defend the Rock and Roll Express when the Horsemen are beating him down. He gets nailed with the Halliburton briefcase. Arn and Benoit hold Gomez while Mongo slaps him around. Randy Savage and Kevin Green run out for the way too late save. WCW, you could tell, is trying to really get Kevin Green over in Charlotte leading up to the time with the Panthers because you really don't want to put someone over in front of the Horsemen, but they really are trying to bridge that gap between NFL and WCW. So, yeah, this was an interesting segment at the end.
Yeah.
Joe Gomez seems he's more than a jobber. We obviously saw him get the win against Disco Inferno last week. I don't remember anything about Joe Gomez. This was a very, very chaotic thing, very WCW at the end.
Yeah, and very, very WCW to throw Joe Gomez into a kind of big storyline.
I'm actually typing in WCW Joe Gomez just to see what pops up. I mean, nothing going on. He's just a WCW wrestler. Like that's all he's done.
One of the power plant kids.
So our next match here, Rick, that is true. I mean, honestly, that's pretty much where I think all he did. I mean, he wrestled in WCW, went to Japan for a bit, wrestled on the Indies until 1999, and that's it. Like that's all he's done. That's all he's done.
Yeah, he's working at Target somewhere.
He's stocking out those toys that we've been talking about. So thank you.
It's him.
Joe Gomez.
It's his fault why I can't find him, that motherfucker.
Yeah, why are the shelves so bare in Target near me? I don't get it.
It's Joe Gomez's fault.
It's distribution issues from Joe Gomez. This whole time he's just bitter. He's never had a figure.
Yeah,
and he's just making sure nobody else gets the figure out there. So there's a million Ultimate Canes just around on the shelf. That's it.
Throwing them in the garbage right when they're coming off the truck.
Right off the truck. Not Joe Gomez throwing the garbage.
Yeah.
All right, so before we move to the next match, we have Ric Flair and the ladies are in full gear in the back for an interview with Gene Okerlund. Flair goes on and on about how Mongo is legit until the other three horsemen show up. Flair tries to sneak Conan into the interview right when Gene says they're out of time. So just classic four horsemen stuff in the back. Ric Flair shenanigans. We have our next match here. I'll let you take the lead. DDP versus Alex Wright with the Lord of the Ring on the line. Which
doesn't matter, but especially when you're fighting the likes of Mean Man Alex Wright. Yeah, so DDP's putting his fucking Lord of the Ring. This is where we're starting to hit those WCW strides. It's just good stuff. It's fun, but good back and forth. Not the worst Alex Wright match I've ever seen. Definitely not the best DDP match I've ever seen. We'll rock it up quick. Diamond cutter, bang. 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Yeah. Once you see the diamond cutter, bro, you ain't going anywhere but home. Bang. It was good stuff though. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. Every time he goes for the diamond cutter, the fans react. They're definitely starting to get really behind DDP. And it's not just the finish, it's everything he does in the ring. So you see him starting to come into his own. Back when he won the Lord of the Ring, all the way back at Slamboree, how much he's grown in the last month and a half has been exponential. Like we've seen a lot of growth through DDP. And, you know, it's not because the booking is really there for him. Like they've kind of put him on the back burner. He's organically getting over and making the most of his time in the ring. So DDP is on the rise. It's going to take a little time for him to get there, but we're starting to see the DDP we're used to.
Yeah. Absolutely. And he's growing into his space very well. You're starting to get the attitude from him. He's starting to get more character. And like you said, the fans are fucking hot when they see that. Bang. It's ready to roll, man.
So Gene Okerlund talks with DDP, and they're just hyping up the fact that he's going to be wrestling, believe it or not, Jim Duggan at Bash the Beach with the Lord of the Ring on the line. Come on.
Yeah. Ho!
As I have Jim Duggan's autograph right here. If you guys are looking, I have a 2x4. I love Jim Duggan, but look, what are we doing?
Yeah.
He already got squashed by the Giant in a title match. DDP, they should be building up DDP to become the next big challenger. It doesn't feel like they're doing that. The Lord of the Ring just seems like a secondary thing. He's never got a shot. It just feels very meaningless. So why should I care about it if they don't care?
No, absolutely. It's like Money in the Bank without having the ability to cash it in and not even being able to carry it out with you. Forget about it for 3 weeks. Have DDP defend it against Alex Wright. Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, I agree.
Tough break, kid.
Next match here, we have Randy Savage with Kevin Green in his corner defeating VK Wall Street, otherwise known as IRS or Renard Streicher, Mike Rotunda, the dad of Bray Wyatt, whatever you want to know. So this is VK Wall Street, the store brand version of the IRS you know and love from Golden Era WWF. So before the match, Okerlund interviews Kevin Green concerning whether he was going to get some revenge on Mongo. He said he's going to wait until the NFL season is over with and join up with 2 other WCW superstars. I don't think we ever get that. Nobody really cares about Kevin Green, even though they try to make him a transcendent star here. And then we talked about it last week. The NFL stars are so fleeting and people could really care. And NFL was not at their prime powers in 1996 like they are now. They're not the NFL we know and love today. So Charlotte wants Flair. They're chanting for his name. Savage annihilates Wall Street to start. Wall Street heads to the floor and shoves Green back, and match goes back and forth. The crowd is chanting for Flair here in Charlotte, and they know Flair is associated with Macho in every way because they're feuding. So interesting to listen to a crowd back in the day sort of go into business for themselves and hijack a match and chant for someone who's not in the ring, because you're used to seeing that through like 2010, 11, 12 and WWE. We're seeing it here in WCW. The crowd was alive. They were chanting for Flair big time, even with a legend like Macho in the ring.
Well, I mean, as much as Chicago's CM Punk town, and you get those chants here, Charlotte, North Carolina is Flair country, man. They would have been chanting that shit no matter what. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't come up more during the show. Because, I mean, everybody says North Carolina when they got there. Charlotte, North Carolina, baby. Woo! It's Flair country, man. So he was fucking super, super over. Over doesn't even make it there. He was the guy.
Yeah, WCW, it's Flair country. It legitimately for a reason. And as popular as Randy Savage is, because he got his cheers when he came out, people wanted to see him. Yeah. But he's not Ric Flair in North Carolina. It's different level of over.
Yeah, 100%, man.
It's CM Punk in Chicago over. It's MJF on Long Island over, baby.
Woo!
So I got my MJF. You got your CM Punk. You know,
it's all love. All love, Dandy.
We have our main event here. I'll let you take the lead here. This is a big moment in Nitro history.
Yeah, no. So the match, listen, we got World Tag Team Champions going in a 3-way match. You got Sting, Lex Luger, the triangle match as they like to call it back then, versus Scott and Rick Steiner versus Harlem Heat. It was a fucking great match. A lot of great wrestling back and forth. Love seeing, again, Steiner's Harlem Heat get in the ring. Obviously, Sting and Lex. This whole match screams Hall of Fame. It really does. And it was so fucking good until we get to the ending where, they start going, oh my God, they're here. They're here. And you see Kevin Nash coming down the aisle with a baseball bat. And you see Scott Hall with the baseball bat. They come walking out. They're banging the bats on the stairs, which I love the sound. That fucking awesome. All these security guards coming out. You don't even see what happens. But Harlem Heat swings the victory with a roll-up, gets the 1, 2, 3, while there's cops in the ring holding their guns, looking at Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. I know there's been a lot of podcasts saying how this made WCW look bad because all these guys were afraid of 2 dudes with bats, but I thought this looked great in retrospective. I thought this was fucking very well done. I thought it was awesome. I mean, and give or take that the chaos only was in the last minute. This was a 10-minute match almost. It was a really solid triple threat tag team match. And then you got the awesomeness at the end of it. You got Kevin Nash, Scott Hall out there teasing, taunting. Kevin Nash gets up on the apron at one point, jumps back down. No physical contact yet. But I mean, Harlem Heat sneaks out of the ring. They're the new tag team champions. Finally, the streak is over. Sting and Luger have dropped the titles, but again, chaos ensued. And I'm telling you, the view of watching the cop grab his gun while you're looking at Kevin Nash and the camera's panning all over the place, it fucking worked, man. It made it feel like shit was going down.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. And I've heard the criticism of this exact moment where people were talking about their whole roster. And I think Nash and Hall have said that as well, about their whole roster being made to look weak because of the bats and all that. But to me, it was so chaotic that it worked. And I think the cops just add the aesthetic, and similar to a couple weeks from now, when we're going to talk about the lawn dart incident, it added realism to it where it felt like they weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And that added to the feel. And lost in all this is the championship title change, where the roll up happens. And the funniest part is Harlem Heat is completely ignoring Hall and Nash.
They
just walk right past them with the titles. And that's what someone would do if Hall and Nash are not part of the storyline. So if you're watching at home, you're like, maybe they're not supposed to be here. Like, the match ended the way it was supposed to, I guess, but they're ignoring it. Wouldn't they interact with them in some capacity if this was storyline? It added to this very real feeling situation. You mentioned the nuanced things with the hand on the gun, the realistic cops. It's not an arena security guard that Wardlow's beating up. It's not the local indie talent wearing the arena shirt. These, I mean, whether they're real cops or not, they're dressed like real cops. They feel like real cops. It's creating a scenario that feels very, very authentic that you can't replicate in any other way. Like, time and place. 1996 was the perfect thing to be initiating this here, because we're on the launch pad for this realism-based storytelling. And you could tell that they're about to get super hot, and they had the crowd in the palm of their hands. The place was going nuts over on Hall and Nash here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, I love that even the announcers like kind of just were like, I guess we have that new tag team champions, and like in the middle of everything, like it played out very, very well. It was really good. But I'm telling you, the baseball bats, them walking through the crowd like mocks, you didn't get that back then. This was all fresh shit. You know, there was no shield. There wasn't people just walking through the crowd, and like they really made this. They made it hit home really hard. It was like you were just like, holy shit is going down. And even knowing what the outcome is, like I was still hyped seeing them get to the ring, the bang, bang, bang on the fucking stairs. You're like, oh, shit's about to go down. Yeah. Like, it adds to the excitement, to the overall flavor. You can't have Baskin Robbins with all vanilla. There's got to be some chocolate and some rocky roads, man.
Well said, my friend. And again, this ages really well, and it just sets the tone for what's going to happen in a week. And I can't wait to get to that. But that puts us at the end of our Nitro here. Ending was nuts. This was just, business as usual for WCW in 1996. They were like, you know what? Crazy endings, leave you on the edge of your seat, and let's move on to the next week and make you want to see more. And that's what they did.
Yeah, love Bobby Heenan at the send off, just standing at the announce table, not sitting down. He's like, I'm getting out of here. I don't want anything to do with this. He's like, come on. Well, he's like, no, they might come back. He's like, I'm done. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
And we know Heenan's actually like kind of the Pillman incident that he had, that he did not want anyone putting their hands on him. So crazy.
Good shit.
But let's move to the chaser to talk about our favorite part of these two Nitros. It'll be hard to pick.
It is.
All right, here we are with the chaser. Every week we will pick our favorite part of the 2 nights of Nitro. Mike Belcaster, what is your favorite part of this 2 week of Nitro before we move into Bash at the Beach, our go home show?
All right, I'm working reverse. Second Nitro was obviously the ending. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash creating chaos. first Nitro we reviewed, I'm going with Dean Malenko versus Rey Mysterio Jr. It's a tough one. It's a very tough one, but God damn it, do I love cruiserweight wrestling, and those are the best two to do.
Completely agree with you. I mean, I could use those same answers, but just to, add some flair to it.
Spice.
I would add a little bit of spice to the World Heavyweight Championship match between the Giant and Scott Steiner from the first night.
Absolutely.
This was the first time we saw Giant go a little bit longer. I mean, the fact that he went 8 minutes and was able to showcase a little bit more of what he was able to do. Sneaky, athletic big man. Doesn't get the credit he deserves as far as the in-ring work he can do at this point. I mean, legend has it he can do a moonsault. Like, at this time, he has the ability to really work. And Scott Steiner brought out the best of him. This was a really good match that showcased both guys, made both guys look strong, and emphasized the tag titles and made them feel like they're on the same level as the World Heavyweight Championship.
100%.
And then obviously the end, we could talk about the bats and the tag team title change, but also want to shine some light on the Eddie Guerrero and Barbarian match. This was a lot of fun. Classic big versus small match. And it felt like it was a dream match that you like put together on, WWE 2K22 with Barbarian, like as a creator wrestler. That's how surreal it felt like to see the two of these guys wrestling. It was really cool.
Yeah. Very unpredictable match and very unexpected, but awesome. Very, very awesome.
So it's time. The bar lights are coming on. You're starting to see what all that girl you're talking to, what she really looks like. It's questionable. You've had we didn't even have a lot of drinks. We have one shot of nostalgia tonight, but make sure you guys get your weekend started with some good drinks. We're going to close the tab and head home and get our weekend started.
Hell yeah.
All right, here we are closing the tab, getting ready to tip our bartenders and say goodnight to everybody. Just so you know, next week's show is a big one, and I got the art to prove it. Hold on, pull it up here. Shot of nostalgia next week. Woo! Special guest Matt from Extra Cooler. We're reviewing the July 1st, 1996 Monday Nitro, and of course, Bash at the Beach. Hulk Hogan turns heel. Look at all that garbage in the ring. It represents what they think of you, Hulk Hogan, and what you did. Man, this is going to be a really fun episode. I can't wait to have Matt from Extra Cooler on. They do such a great job. Again, check out their show, part of the Pod Foundation. Yeah. I just can't wait to have a different voice in here to chat it up with us, and what a great voice to have with us.
100%, man. Couldn't have better words for the Extra Cooler team, especially Matt. So good stuff. I'm fucking pumped, man. I'm so jacked and ready to roll. It's going to be good times.
So before we get out of here, we have a couple minutes to spare. So let's do some shilling. Go to the turnbuckletavern.com, join the community, support us on all these platforms, especially Twitch, because we are giving that Kenny Omega figure away where if you just comment.
3,000.
Yeah, it's the one of 3,000 actually. So
yeah, Shop AW exclusive. Make sure you guys go comment on our videos from Twitch. Could be this video. You might be a little late. But hey, you got it for all next week. I think we're doing it for the rest of next week, and we'll probably be pulling our winner on the Fig Night after. So very exciting stuff. Check it out. Follow us on Twitch.
And check also, if you want a shirt, guys, get one of these shirts, man. Like the Tavern Daddy shirt is just amazing. That purple pops on the Pro Wrestling T-Shot Nostalgia. I have both those shirts. They're amazing. If you want to wear the shirt that the Ace is wearing tonight, Anti-Taskmaster, it's from Teespring Store. Turnbuckle Tavern, check it out. It's some good stuff. So yeah, that's really all we got for this. Dude, this is my 5th show. I'm pulling Mike Belcaster duty this week. This is my 5th show of the week. I was on the debate, the GCW show, the AEW wrap-up show, Honor Society, and here I am closing the week with you. Shot of nostalgia, and what a fucking blast it was, dude. I had such a great time tonight.
Closing it out just like we started with the two bad other guys from the Turnbuckle Tavern up in this bitch. Yeah, absolutely. And make sure you guys tune into Fig Night next week, where we got Steve Oviser from Mattel on. We're going to talk about all of the San Diego Comic-Con reveals that they had from lovely WWE Mattel line. So we're here for it, guys.
And guys, make sure you stay tuned with us, because in 6 minutes before our time, young Anthony and the Australian icon Nick Storm will take the airwaves from us and talk about WrestleMania 2. Mr. T and Piper in that boxing match. We also have King Kong Bundy versus Hulk Hogan in the steel cage.
Woo.
WrestleMania too big for one city. They're in 3 cities, guys. So we'll see what the Young Guns have to say about this. They did a great job WrestleMania 1. What a show it was. The aesthetics, the overlays, the conversation. It was great. Young Anthony, Nick Storm, never disappoint. Young Anthony, the young prodigy here, Independent Epicenter. Follow him on Instagram. He's doing a lot of great work with the independents, working with all these different Invictus Pro Wrestling. He's working a lot with making some highlight packages. Follow him now. Catch him before he catches fire and he becomes too big for everybody else. And it's going to be hard to get him. I mean, you're going to, enjoy him while he's here because he's taking off to do bigger and great things over time. Wouldn't shock me to see him doing big things in the wrestling business. I love what Young Anthony's doing. He's such a great addition to the tavern. Absolutely, man. I couldn't have put it better myself, brother. So that's all we got for you, man. Mike Belcaster, how about you say goodbye for us? It's hard for me to say goodbye. I think you need to do it for us, please. It's all good. Everybody be safe. Have a wonderful weekend. Make sure you tune in next weekend and to before our time. Just tune into the tavern. Ring that little bell, subscribe, like us, share us, give us some love, write some comments. We love comments. We love everything. We love comments. Keep watching. While you're commenting, comment from Twitch so you get entered into that contest. Stay tuned for the greatness that we always have at the tavern. And until next time, we will see you here. Tip your bartenders, guys. It was great. I hit the wrong one. No, yeah. I mean, hey, that's what. Tip your goddamn bartenders. We gotta go. We're out of time. Where the hell is the actual closer? There's not. Here it is. I'll see. We gotta go. We're out of time.